sitting there. One night, the headlights flashed on like it wanted to be seen. She said Jerry had taken down a partial plate, but hadn't shared it yet with police. His plan was to handle it after the grading period. That grading period would never come. Three seniors were at the center of Jerry's final disciplinary complaint: Brandon Minton, Leo Alvarez, and Sean Pettis. According to school administrators, they'd used a cheating scheme involving an old test copy shared on Snapchat. But it wasn't just about cheating. These were not average kids. They were children of privilege. Brandon Minton, the most prominent among them, was the son of Brad Minton, a powerful property developer with political pull in southern Indiana. Jerry had pushed hard for disciplinary hearings. The result? School board silence. No punishments. Pressure quietly mounted for Jerry to drop it. One school secretary, who requested anonymity, said she overheard Brad Minton confront Jerry in the hallway outside the office. "You're going to cost my son his scholarship. I won't forget this." Detectives brought Brad in for questioning. He was smooth, measured, cooperative, and armed with a strong alibi. He'd been in Louisville the afternoon Jerry vanished, attending a business conference. Multiple witnesses confirmed it. Still, police weren't convinced. And when Brandon was called in, his arrogance stood out. Police widened their search for surveillance. They canvassed homes along Jerry Street and recovered what became their biggest lead: a ring camera from a neighbor facing the street. On October 9th, 2 nights before Jerry vanished, it captured a black Ford F-150 pulling up at 2:13 a.m., headlights off. The truck sat idling across the street from Jerry's home for nearly 20 minutes. The next night, same time, same truck, same spot. Despite grainy video, police could match the make and model to a vehicle registered to Kyle Minton, Brandon's older cousin, recently released from prison for aggravated assault. When questioned, Kyle claimed he was just driving around. He denied being in Jerry's neighborhood at all, but phone records placed him within 2 miles of Jerry's home at least twice in the same week. It was a small town. Nothing was coincidence in them all. Jerry's school phone had been wiped before it was found, but detectives turned their attention to his personal device. It was never recovered, but Olivia came forward with a strange confession. Jerry had kept a burner phone. She didn't know the number, but she'd seen him use it in private. He told her it was to document certain conversations. At the time, she assumed he meant notes for parent calls. Now, it seemed much more intentional. With Olivia's help, they searched Jerry's house again. Hidden inside a false drawer panel in his desk was a burner phone, nearly dead but intact. Detectives recovered 6 voicemails. The most chilling was dated October 7th. "You keep pushing and we'll push back. Back off, or you'll wish you had." The voice was unmistakable. Brandon Minton. A forensic analysis confirmed it with 98% confidence. When pressed, Brandon claimed it was a joke, a drunk voicemail. But when paired with Kyle's proximity to Jerry's house, the black truck sightings, and the threatening tone, the pieces were aligning, and the picture wasn't good. The biggest problem was still the missing timeline. Jerry left school at 3:45 p.m. His phone pinged for the last time at 4:23 p.m. near a rural railway. But there were nearly 40 miles between Greenville and the field where his car was burned. What happened in that 40-mile stretch? That's when police focused on traffic cams on County Route 12, a known rural connector road. Sure enough, at 4:02 p.m., a grainy camera caught a silver Subaru followed closely by a black truck with one fog light out. 3 minutes later, both vehicles vanished from footage. Police now believe Jerry had been forced off the road, abducted. The fire site told them something else. Gasoline had been poured across the trunk, hood, and cabin. Whoever torched the car had experience. They wanted everything destroyed. On November 27th, nearly 2 months after Jerry's disappearance, 2 duck hunters hiking through the brush of Clark County woods found something protruding from the soil. It was bone. By dusk, a full forensics team was on site. They recovered partial remains, later identified through dental records as Jerry Dunk. He'd been killed by blunt force trauma and strangulation. The coroner estimated he died within hours of his disappearance. Nearby, they found a scrap of clothing, a torn school lanyard with the name Mr. J. Dunk barely legible under soot and date. The mystery was over. The crime was now murder. The discovery of Jerry's body marked a turning point, but the emotional storm was far from over. With Brandon and Kyle in custody, detectives prepared to make their case. But even as indictments loomed, deeper questions remained. Who planned the attack? Or was this truly about cheating, or something more? And what role did adults play in letting this escalate? In Part 3, we dive into the courtroom drama, the shocking confession that turned the trial upside down, and the emotional climax that still leaves a scar on the town of Greenville. Stay tuned, because the truth behind Jerry Dunk's death isn't as simple as you think. A beloved teacher found buried in the woods, a student caught in a lie, and a confession that would shock an entire courtroom and change the lives of everyone involved. On December 3, 2019, Brandon Minton was brought back into custody after forensic analysis linked him to a threatening voicemail on Jerry's secret burner phone. His phone search history had disturbing queries like, how to dispose of a body in the woods, how long before bones are unrecognizable, how to destroy a phone completely. When police showed Brandon the recovered lanyard, scorched with Jerry's name still visible, he broke down. But instead of asking for a lawyer, he started talking. His confession began with a line no one expected. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I just wanted him to back off. Brandon admitted to orchestrating the confrontation. According to him, Jerry had ruined his chances at a college scholarship by reporting him for cheating. He told his cousin Kyle that he wanted to scare Jerry, just rattle him a little, nothing crazy. But Kyle had other ideas. Brandon and Kyle waited outside Jerry's house in the black Ford F-150. When Jerry left school, they followed. At a remote railroad crossing, Kyle pulled ahead and forced Jerry's car to stop. Dashcam footage from a farm vehicle later confirmed a brief stop there at 4:24 p.m., the last ping from Jerry's phone. Brandon claimed they only meant to rough him up. But when Jerry resisted, Kyle struck him with a crowbar, knocking him unconscious. Terrified and unsure what to do next, they drove him 20 miles into the woods. There, in a fit of rage, Kyle strangled Jerry. Brandon watched. He said nothing. He did nothing. I thought if I told him to stop, he'd hurt me too. Kyle then ordered Brandon to help move the body. They buried Jerry shallowly beneath loose leaves and brush. They drove Jerry's car to a field, poured gasoline, and set it on fire. The fire was meant to destroy any trace. Only they didn't know Jerry had kept a burner phone, or that one scrap of paper from his students would survive. The murder of Jerry Dunk rocked Indiana, and the state wasted no time bringing charges. First-degree murder, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and destruction of evidence. The trial began in April 2020, delayed by public outrage and intense media attention. The courtroom was packed every day. Students, teachers, parents. Olivia Marsh, Jerry's partner, testified with tears in her eyes. His sister, Carla, read a statement so powerful that jurors reportedly cried. Prosecutors painted a clear picture. Brandon, angry at being held accountable, enlisted his violent cousin to eliminate the man standing in his way. Kyle, with a history of assault, needed little convincing. Together, they planned and executed a murder driven by entitlement, resentment, and cowardice. But the defense had a different story that Brandon's lawyers painted him as a scared, impressionable teen manipulated by an older ex-convict. They admitted his involvement but pleaded for manslaughter, arguing that Kyle acted alone in the actual killing. Kyle, meanwhile, showed no remorse. He stared blankly during witness testimonies. When asked in court if he regretted anything, he reportedly smirked and said, "People get soft. He pushed the wrong kid." The courtroom fell silent. In closing arguments, the prosecution reminded jurors that Jerry Dunk was a teacher who tried to do the right thing, that he reported academic dishonesty not to punish, but to protect the value of education. And for that, he was murdered by the very system meant to support him. After just 9 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous decision. Brandon Minton was found guilty of second-degree murder, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison, with parole possible after 25. Kyle Minton was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Gasps were heard in the courtroom. Jerry's sister Carla clutched her hand over her mouth. Olivia wept quietly. and a dozen former students wore buttons with Jerry's photo that simply said, "Dunk the difference." With Brandon and Kyle behind bars, many expected closure, but it didn't feel like justice. Not fully. Parents across Indiana began questioning how a school system could let things spiral. Why wasn't Brandon disciplined earlier? Why wasn't Jerry protected after sounding the alarm? The Indiana Teachers Association released a report in 2021 citing Jerry's case as a symbol of what happens when educators are left vulnerable. A bill named the Dunk Act was introduced aimed at protecting